All right, today we have the Alienware Aurora R13. That's the Alienware desktop with the 12th gen processors and 30 series GPUs. It's a big, gigantic box. You can see I couldn't even use my overhead camera because it's too tall. I guess I could, but I'm gonna redo my whole setup. So it did ship in this box. So that means this box is filthy for one. But they are decorating the box, and hopefully you can see, it looks like the device pulled apart inside there, which is cool. I mean, I think it's fairly well protected in here, but let's take a look at what's inside the box. Oh yeah, so there's just the device itself right inside that box. There's not. All right, so you can see me. So I don't know how well that is protected now that we're on this side of the table. I mean, I guess it is. It has these foam paddings in here, and I mean, it doesn't look like it's broken or anything. What we got up here? It's just a black box. So that includes the power cord here, and then your standard Alienware booklet and card. I did not opt for a mouse and keyboard because I have my own mouse and keyboard, of course. Actually, I bought the Alienware mouse and keyboard. So that would be the cheap, like $5 mouse and keyboard if you bought. So they keep the box in there for packaging purposes. So essentially in that box would have been the mouse and keyboard. And then of course we have the power cord. I'm gonna set that off to the side here. That seems about it there. Let's see if this pulls out. Guess it does. These little nubbins were tucked in the box, so it didn't go anywhere. Nice. Big foam padding to protect it. All right, so we got it out of the box. There is all this little plastic on here, so let's put that action off. Probably can't see that. I'll peel them off. Get all these. Bottom, we have some slurred amounts. It says don't hold here. There we go. I think that's all of it. All right, so let's take a look. This side, of course, it just says Aurora on the front here. It has the Intel Core i9 sticker, a USB-C, USB-A, 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 and a microphone port. This annoys me because I have the Dell XPS 8950 and it has an SD card slot here. And I don't know why this one can't have it as well. On the back here, of course, we have the honeycomb grill up top. And then back here, we have an SP-Diff cable, a bunch of audio cables. It does say the R13 here. USB-A, USB-A, 2 USB-C ports, 2 of the blue USB-A ports, 2 more. So 6 total USB-A ports on the back, 2 USB-C ports, Ethernet port. And here is the 3090 with HDMI and then 3 display ports. And of course, the power port. All right, and then let's take a look inside. So back here, very similar to the Dell XPS 8950, or I could use a flathead or Phillips like the one here. And then once you unscrew that, the screw doesn't come out, it's stuck in there so you don't lose it, which is nice. If you pull this here, it releases this guy and it pops right off. All right, so inside here, there's a lot going on.
So I got a lot going on.
So you can tell the case is like slanted, which is cool. Doesn't add any functionality, I don't believe. It's just more, by now I'm sure you've seen the Gamers Nexus video where they're ranting about how terrible this thing is, but I don't fully agree with them and I'll explain later. But should also clarify, I bought this with my own money for me. It's not a review unit. I didn't get any kind of special deal because I was making a video on it. Dell didn't talk to me, Alienware didn't talk to me. I bought it for me because I wanted it. And I already have the Dell XPS 8950, which is a great device as well. All right, so here's the 3090. I do agree they could have better cable management here.
Who designed these things, man?
It has this little fin right here that is just to help support it so it doesn't sag, along with this little device here. And there's a fan right here, so that helps guide the air across the 3090. And the fin tucks right into that, which help it also keep from sagging. Unlike the Dell XPS 8950, there's a fan up here as well, and also a fan up here. The Dell XPS 8950 only has a fan here, and of course the liquid cooling. You can see I do have the liquid cooling option. This is the Cryotech version, or the one that has the higher liquid cooling. I forget what they actually call it. There's 2 levels of liquid cooling for the Alienware. For the Dell version, you only got 1 level of liquid cooling. This one's supposed to be better, but if you've seen the Gamers Nexus video, then they say it's not enough, which could be true, but again, I'll get into that later. Here is the PSU. You can't see it, of course, but mine has the 1000 watt PSU. When this thing first came out, they were only offering them in 750 watt PSU, but I was able to bump it up to 1,000 watt because I waited long enough to order it. And they did offer a 3090 Ti, but it didn't seem worth it financially, so I stuck with the 3090. Here's a slot for a hard drive or an SSD. Of course, the fan up top, liquid cooling goes out the fan here. And then here's the 2 sticks of 32 gigabytes of DDR5, so 64 gigabytes total. There are 2 more slots available. Gamers Nexus was unhappy they're green, but really it's not super noticeable to me. I don't think I mean, it would be nicer if they're black, of course, but it's not a big deal. Right here, I ordered it, upgraded to a 2 terabyte NVMe here, but I will. This here is the Wi-Fi card, which I would assume is replaceable. Looks replaceable. So this is the OS NVMe, but there is a second slot here that includes the screw, so you can use the shorter one or the full size. I'm gonna put the 980 Pro 2 terabyte Samsung SSD. I use this in my Dell XPS 8950 and it works. I have no problems with it whatsoever. I'm a big fan of it, so I'm gonna use this one again. Well, I bought a second one, it's the same one. All right, I believe we covered pretty much everything inside there. There are directions. Oh, this is a little light bar, of course. This little thing here, it flips up, so that will have lights on inside there. And then there is a warning saying don't take it, and there's a directions on how to take your PSU out. I don't see directions on how. That's interesting. On the Dell XPS 8950, there were directions on the door about how to take certain things out. This one does not have that. PSU, yes, but it had the directions on how to take the GPU out and other things, but I don't see it on this one. Which again, I would always look those up online anyhow, as opposed to using the labels on the door, and I would obviously much rather have this clear door. There are some little labels, like it says fan 1 right here, fan 3 here, fan 2 here. I'm sure there's more labels if you look around, but. All right, it clips right back on, and then just screw this guy back in. All right, so you can tell it's this cool, crazy looking design. In addition, I bought this guy. This does not come with it. You have to buy this separately, which I don't mind because if you didn't want it, you can save a couple bucks. I did want it. It also has the plastic wraps on here, and yeah, just magnets on there. That's pretty neat. Like I saw other people saying they didn't order this because they were worried about blocking the airflow, but I don't think that's gonna impact the airflow really at all, because some air will come out here, some will come out here. I mean, this is gonna be good for me. Another reason I bought it is because I have a Great Dane whose head can reach on my desk, of course, and I thought maybe if I had this here, it would keep them from either licking or slobbering on the wires and whatnot. So pretty crazy looking with that on there. It does take away somewhere to hold it from. This thing is heavy. Luckily, I'm super strong. If you are not super strong, you're gonna be in trouble. On camera, I think it looks the same, but like here, it almost looks like the lights don't match up. Or maybe it's just that light. I do have a super bright light shining out there, so maybe that's it. I guess we can see. I also have the Alienware X17. Those whites are basically the same. This one's dusty, but yeah, I mean, they're basically the same. When I initially saw this design language, I didn't think I liked it, and then now I love it. I have the Alienware monitor, the Alienware laptop, now desktop, headphones, mouse, keyboard, the whole shebang. All right, let me get some stuff rearranged. I'm gonna do a little boot up action. We'll do our first little boot here. All right, so now let's go ahead and do our first boot up and see how she goes. So I'll see the GTX logo lighten up. All right, so we got ourselves a little Windows 11 action, of course. I have my Logitech MX3 mouse and MX keys keyboard plugged in, but I did buy an Alienware mouse and keyboard for this. It's just easier because there was a wired and this is wireless, so it'll be easier to use this one. This is Windows 11. I forget if this is Home or Pro. We will connect to our wireless. So far, nothing too fancy is happening to Alienware, just the 3090's lighting up and the Alienware head is blue. All right, and we did connect. This is also just a little LG monitor I use for testing things. It's small enough to fit in here because it's a large desktops, but I will be using the Alienware 38-inch monitor with this at my proper desktop setup. All right, so Windows agreement, of course. So you get to name it up front, which I like. So I'll just call it Alienware R13. So now here we go, booting up. All right, how do you set up the device? I will set it up for personal device. You know, I will use it. I do have a business, but I don't have like an Active Directory business. All right, so it recognizes my Dell XPS 8950. That's the last device I was logged into, but I'm gonna set it up as a new device. So let's see if we got any updates here. While we're waiting for updates, I just want to say this is a super cool looking device. The Gamer Nexus video was ragging on about how much plastic this, and sure, there's a lot of plastic, but it's a cool looking device. I don't know if you, certainly if you're into that design language, which I initially was not, but as soon as I bought the Alienware monitor, I was all in, and then I got the X17, I got the Alienware chair. I mean, I would have never thought that I'd been into this lunar light design language, but I is. All right, there we are. This is a cool Alienware desktop. Display settings. It's gonna look a little wonky here because I'm recording the screen and this only records at 1080p. So it didn't recognize my Logitech Options software. Of course, Edge is already pre-installed. I like that Alienware wallpaper. You may or may not like it, but I think it's pretty cool looking. So far, nothing happening with the lights yet. I still want to install the Alienware software. So I'll notice something interesting right off the bat. NVIDIA settings are down here in the taskbar. On my Alienware X17, it won't stay down there. I can open it, I can use it, I can change settings and all that, but it doesn't stay in the taskbar. It doesn't really hurt anything, it's just an odd little quirk, right? So let's go ahead and look at all the apps that are installed. It's already in dark mode, which is pretty nice. Dark theme. So we have Access, Alarms and Clock, Alienware Command Center, Alienware Customer Connect, Alienware Digital Delivery, Alienware Update. So these are all the same kind of software that Dell computers have. They're just called Alienware on this one instead of Dell. Alienware Command Center is where it'll do all your lighting and changing settings to the PC itself. Alienware Update will have some obviously software updates. Calculator, Calendar, Camera, Cortana, Excel, Feedback Hub, File Explorer, GeForce Experience, Get Help, Get Started, Groove Music, Intel Optane Memory and Storage Management, Killer, Control Center, Mail, Maps, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft News, Microsoft Solitaire Collection, Microsoft Store, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft To Do, Movies and TV, My Alienware, there's also My Dell if you have a Dell device, Notepad, NVIDIA Control Panel, Office, Office Language Preferences, OneDrive, OneNote, Outlook, Paint, Photos, PowerPoint, Publisher, Realtek, Audio Console, Settings, Snip and Sketch Snipping Tool. I believe these consolidate once you do an update. Sticky Notes, Support Assist, Tips, Voice Recorder, Weather, Windows Ease of Access, Windows Security, Windows Terminal, Windows Tools, Word, Xbox, Xbox Game Bar, and your phone. All right, and let's look at our taskbar while we're here, our task manager. We'll get more details. Go to performance. So the CPU is the 12th gen Intel Core i9-12900KF. So the K is the overclocked one, I guess, and the F just means there's no onboard graphics card. So no Intel Xe or whatever they call Intel UHD. It is just the GeForce 3090 graphics card. Memory is the 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, 4400 megahertz. Disk 0 is SK Hynix 2 terabyte. That's interesting. I think my other one's a Western Digital on my Dell, so I'm interested to test that and see how that compares. Wi-Fi is killer Wi-Fi 6E. I'll be Ethernet the whole time anyhow, so I mean, it's nice it has it, but I'll be Ethernet. GPU is, of course, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090 with 24 gigabytes of dedicated GPU memory. All right, and then of course you'll have this dumb stuff here, but these are they're not really installed. Like you can uninstall these. There's like placeholders or something. And then, with Windows stuff's installed here that you can get rid of, like Groove Music. No one uses that, we can uninstall that. And then I assume if we have updates, there'll be tons of updates. A ton of email updates. So I'm gonna update all these first before I start messing with the lights. This one you can see with the blue lights on, how it looks with the Samsung in there. Again, Gamers Nexus was complaining about those being green. When the lights are on, you really don't notice the green cards there. So yeah, pretty cool. So here you can see the size difference between the Alienware R13 and the XPS A950. These are both came out essentially the same time. This one came out a month or two before this one, but they were essentially the same ballpark. Both of them 12th gen i9, both of them 3090, both of them liquid cooling, but the liquid cooler on the Alienware is supposed to be bigger. So we'll see. Actually, we can compare. They are very similar, but there are some minute differences. Both of them, this back pops off. Undo the screw here, and then you clip this guy, and it pops right out. Here's where I was saying that the Dell shows some instructions inside. All right, so you can see them both inside pretty good here. You can see both of them I have the Samsung SSD added. Both of them seem to have the same Wi-Fi chip. It's about 3 inches wide. So it's about the same width. So yeah, they're about the same width, but the Alienware seems to be deeper, so for liquid cooling purposes. All right, so both of them, you see the RAM's the same. It's also interesting enough that the first one skipped, second one, first one skipped, second one, and so on. Both have liquid cooling going here, but you can see there's no fan here on the Dell, and the Alienware has a fan right here. Here's where a hard drive is on my Dell XPS A950, and the Alienware has the hookups for one, but I didn't order it with that because I found that to be useless. The Alienware has a spot for an SSD right here, which I don't see on this one. I'm assuming they'll still be there, but Who knows? Both have the same 3090, both same little connections there with the little bridge piece and this piece, right? There's a fan here and also a fan here, but then the Alienware has a fan here that this one does not. These setups look pretty similar. Of course, there's a light bar here for the Alienware. That's just for lighting purposes. And then most of the things look pretty similar. So you can see that looks pretty good. Just a little dusty. This is after I got it at Christmas time. It's now June 18th. I got it literally December 22nd, I think. So maybe December 24th, I don't know. Right before Christmas. So this is 6 months of use. Everyday usage. Not too bad with the dust in there, I guess. And then of course the Alienware has a bigger power supply than the Dell. Oh, same 2 terabyte. Well, interesting enough, this one is a Western Digital, and the Alienware is an SK Hynix. I believe it's the same Wi-Fi card. It's, you know, there and there, but I believe it's the same card in both. This one has a blue motherboard. This one has a black motherboard. It does say Dell here, and here's that Aurora word. Both have the same, you know, contraptions here, so it looks pretty good. It's not the same motherboard, of course. Not just color-wise, but this one has an SD card slot in the front. This one does not have SD card slot. This one has an internal GPU on the motherboard, and this one does not have an iGPU. You know, one caveat is that there's no fan here, and there's no fan here on the Dell, but this part has ventilation, so it's a pretty straight shot from this fan right through here. And there's a fan here as well, but this is what Gamer Nexus harped about. There is, you know, I can get my finger in there, and I got a big hand. But so there's space here and here for it to fly under there and the air come in. So I don't know if that's, I mean, it looks cooler, obviously. I don't know. This looks cool too, though, so it's hard to say. I don't know which one will give better airflow to the GPU or not, but we'll see. And I think they may be different fans because this one has a gray side and this one is a black side. That could just be decoration, but we'll see. All right, so let's run some benchmarks. All right, just want to show a couple things real quick. So this is my Alienware R13, of course. The CPU is the KF, and of course with the 3090 and with the 64 gigs of RAM. So I've been using that, testing and benchmarking and whatnot. If you want to see the wallpapers, of course, this is the wallpaper that comes just standard, like it's when you boot up the devices. This is the wallpaper it shows. But if you want to look for their wallpapers, go to Windows, Web, and then Wallpaper. And there's a folder for Alienware and for Dell. And if you go to Alienware, it has all these cool guys in here. So this big white one. This one's really cool looking. Not really crazy about this one or this one. Not bad. And this one's really cool as well. And this one's wild. I've never seen the Alienware like as a thing. It's usually just the alien head, but and this one's just some weird imagery. There's a little alien head there, I guess. And this one's alright. And if you want something plain, that's still kind of unique. So we got that. And then if you look in, but you notice the one for the device is not in here. But if you go back to wallpaper and the Dell, then here's this one, which is the one that comes on the desktop. It's only 1080p wallpaper though, which is interesting. I also have the Alienware X17, and it has the same wallpaper Alienware folder. All these are the same in here, but then under its Dell folder is the one from the X17, which is, I think, probably one of the best looking wallpapers. And its name is actually UHD, so Ultra High Def or 4K. So it does look, this doesn't look as pristine as the Alienware X17 does on my large 38-inch Alienware monitor. But of course, I'll put a link in the description. You can go to the Alienware or Dell websites actually, and it's just a zip file for them all. This is updated April 22nd. So if you want me to download this, and we'll extract it all. And you see here, we have a lot more wallpapers that are not here. So this one actually is a more bluish color than the one that I have. The one I have is more this kind of green color, but there is a better picture, so maybe I will use this one. Yeah, so that's pretty good. This is the one that's on my X17, which looks really good. I think it's a pretty cool wallpaper. And then, you have these cool guys here. This is the one that comes on the new 2022 Alienware X17, which is also a pretty cool one. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff here, so I was using this one for a while, just the plain one. It looks pretty cool. That's interesting, because this is a higher def one than the one that was already set as. Yeah, it's instantly noticeable how much better it is on mine. Well, that's fascinating. All right, that's it. We'll show some other stuff, but I just want to show wallpapers. I'm always fascinated, be it a phone or a desktop or a laptop. I'm always interested in what kind of default wallpapers they have. I usually think they look pretty good. All right, that's it. All right, here we are in my Alienware X17. As I was just mentioning, if you go to Windows, Web, Wallpaper, Alienware, we have the same ones. And if you go back to Dell, there is the same one I have here, which is this one. But interesting enough, it's in UHD, so it's 4K automatically, whereas the one on the desktop was not 4K, which is Interesting. As I mentioned, I'm currently on my Alienware X17, but let's take a look at the test for the Alienware R13 benchmarks. I tested it in balance mode and both on overclock settings they have, but we'll save that for another video. Right now, let's just look at the balance test. So let's take a look at gaming. First, Batman Arkham City. I tested at 1080p, 1440p, and my monitor is not quite 4K. It is 3840 by 1600 and 144 hertz. And this is the same monitor that I used when I had my X17 docked, or with the R13 as in the desktop mode, of course. So all the tests were performed on this monitor. I don't think that really makes a difference. But for reference, that's what I was using. So it's sort of not quite 4K. It's like a taller version of 4K, essentially. I don't know, but instead of writing all that out, I just wrote it as 4K on these notes here, right? So you can see I would change in Batman, change the settings. So again, the monitor is kind of taller than 16 by 9, sort of 16 by 10-ish, I guess. But I'd set the test to 1080p, 16 by 9, and 1440p, 16 by 9. This is a much older game, but it has a built-in benchmark. And I ran the MSI Afterburner. Mash IT taught me how to do that. So you see playing at 1080p, we had an average 164 frames per second. You can see the GPU temperature and the CPU temperature stayed relatively cool. 1440p, averaging 153 FPS. Again, 61 degrees and 66 degrees. And then the maxed out 4K settings, 134 FPS. So again, this older game, no temperature problems. Older game, we didn't expect any issues here, right? So let's crank it up a little bit to Red Dead Redemption 2. So testing at 1080p, we got an average of 83 FPS. Again, temperature a little bit higher at 75, but never really got problematic at all, really. 1440p, average FPS 72. Temperature again, no biggie. And at 4K, 62 FPS. So again, this is a much more graphically intense game, and I think 62 FPS is still pretty solid. This is all ultra settings. Yes, the only thing I would do is change the resolution. I left everything else set to ultra and all the stuff like it was currently, and 144 hertz. And that's it. Did fine, no problems. Look at Shadow of the Tomb Raider. This is another game with a built-in benchmark. So let's look at 1080p. So again, no real changing of the settings. I just set it to 1080p resolution. Made sure VSync is off. Set my monitor to 144 hertz. And just ran the benchmark. Got up to about 72 degrees. And you can tell we're getting averaging 140 FPS. So obviously you can really crush it at 1080p for that game. 1440p, same deal, right? 144 hertz. VSync off. Ran our test. 12th Gen i9 3090. Average FPS 101 FPS. I think still excellent for this game. Should be no problem. And then we cranked it up to 4K. Again, not quite 4K, 3840 by 1600. And again, we're getting 70 FPS. I don't really know how that compares to other things, but still seems alright to me, right? So for these kind of games, I think anything above 60 FPS is going to be solid for you. And then the newest game on the list would be Far Cry 6. This one, I don't think I had an option to change it. And so I just ran it just at this max setting. And again, we're getting average 85 FPS. 98 max, but again, I don't notice any major problems. I really don't know a lot about reading the graphs continuously. I mean, I know dips are probably bad, but I don't think there's any, and they've set that ultra, so I think you'd be more than happy playing this game as well. I did actually play Far Cry 4, which is an older game, and had no problems, of course, and I played Rogue Company, and everything's ultra settings, no qualms whatsoever. I mean, ran perfectly fine. Let's look at Cinebench. So Cinebench is obviously going to test the CPU, and we had 24,623 points, which has me at the number 2 behind the Threadripper here. And then single bit score, 1977, and that was the best score for a single core. Now again, I really doubt that's the best of all time, because I'm pretty sure I went to my A950. So I was number 1, I think, on the benchmarks for the A950 as well. But I'll do a deeper dive on the benchmarks. But for now, let's say here's the scores. Looks pretty good to me. And I did do a full testing with Hardware Info and the Extreme Tuning utility running. So it would throttle here so often, but I don't know if that's as big a deal as it was made out to be by Gamers Nexus. So I'll post this on another channel, another video later, and do a deeper dive, of course, you'll see. But, you know, we're still getting pretty impressive numbers here, so I don't know if it's a reason to cause for concern, right? I did Crystal Disk Mark to test the C drive, so that is the SK Hynix drive, which is getting excellent scores here. And then I added which I'll do in a separate video, a Samsung 980 Pro NVMe SSD, and the SK Hynix that came from Alienware is scoring better. I mean, they both score excellent scores, but really no qualms there from either one, right? The G drive is the one I put in, C drive, of course, came with it. Both of them are top-notch scores. Very happy there. All right, we also did a little Geekbench action. Again, this is mainly testing the CPU, but we're testing 1891 for the single core and 177097 for the multi-core. You can see my various stats here, right? So again, nothing. I think these are good scores, of course. Geekbench Compute, which tests the GPU, and so 215,518. Which again, I think it's a pretty solid score. You can see the motherboard. I don't know what this 2009 means, but that's the KF, as you can tell. Again, good scores, very solid. I ran the Intel XTU benchmark. I've never used this before, so I don't know. I used it back to back, and the first time I got 9,042, and the second time I got 9,134. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I've never used that test before. As I mentioned, I was running that on the overclock off and thermal and power on balanced on the Alienware R13. So times 5, we had an 18,741. So that's maybe giving you a 175 FPS here. PC Mark 10, again 8583. Port Royale 12,571, 170 FPS expected in games. And VR Mark 16,592. So you can tell I'm scoring the tops of almost all these tests. So again, I'll dive into benchmarks deeper in another video. I saw no problems with it. It didn't really get loud. Occasionally, Port Royale would get loud, and that's common, I think. Really, I mean, it performed very well. I had no qualms with my performance with the device. But anyhow, we'll do that deeper dive. I'll show some more with the Alienfx lighting and more benchmarks and whatnot. But this video's getting a little too long as is, so we're going to trim it up here. That's the first look. I said we'll have another video putting SSD in, we'll have some benchmark video, maybe a little bit of gaming, and then some review action. So stay tuned, get subscribed, check back in. We're going to have a lot more Alienware content coming up and a lot more Razer content coming up. So if you're interested in either one or just cool stuff in general, check me out. All right, thanks.